definitely be briefing those to this community. And next slide, please. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed panel and panel members here. Jake Marcellus, he's going to be bringing his team together here to meet with you all and have a great discussion. So Jake became GSA's Executive Director for Enterprise Technology Solutions in February 2023. He leads the subcategory that includes enterprise telecommunications, mobility, and satellite communications, or SATCOM. Earlier, Jake served in GSA's IT organization and has extensive experience leading telecommunication efforts within the Department of Defense. So I want to give a warm welcome to Jake Marcellus, and I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can introduce your team, and we'll jump into it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Robert. So I want to apologize to you because we met yesterday during the pre-brief. And your name has actually been in my notes, right? So Kevin Gallo has been saying like, hey, we need to talk to Noah about their N-Wave program because there's probably some collaboration that we could be doing in respect to, we're both program offices that run telecom acquisition shops, right? And I said, absolutely. So now I know that you're the same Robert Sears. So thanks.
Building bridges. Building bridges.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And that's how we're going to be successful for the federal government, by like literally working together and making sure that we're sharing information around. You talked about TDM divestiture, and which is a topic literally that we talk about every day. And just things like cybersecurity concerns, right? So I look forward to following up with you with some partnership. So before I introduce the team, I also want to just kind of to just orient the audience here to what we do, right? So again, Executive Director, I've been here since February. Our program office is the program office. Generally, we speak about EIS, right? That's our large telecom contract, multiple award IDIQ, $50 billion ceiling, 9 primes. We have mandatory and then optional services over there. And if you look at our customer base, right, it is pretty much the entire federal government, right? Agencies that have as little as 50 maybe FTEs and maybe even only one site in an urban area, all the way to large departments like Department of Interior, right, who has footprint in 50 states and highly rural areas as well. Can't forget ComSatCom, right? We have that on multiple award schedule where you can get bandwidth shared or private satellite phones, terminals, those things. And as well as our other program, which we put a lot of good energy into, especially with the mobile working group, is our mobility service offerings, where we offer managed mobility services, distributed antenna, 5G. So what does our whole organization look like, right? So there's the ETS organization, and of course there's plenty of others on the periphery that are inside of the organization called IT category, which is in the Federal Acquisition Service, inside of the General Services Administration. I have to run those acronyms through my head really quickly. And our organization consists of roughly 150 personnel, technologists, acquisition experts, financial experts, program management, internal systems, cybersecurity, and then I think some of the most important people on our team are our solutions brokers, right? So those are government, federal staff on our team that actually work directly with our customers. So they are the face of our program. They are the ones working directly, and then working back with all those other stakeholders that I just mentioned, right? So what do you get with this organization if you work for us? And I think there's value in 2 respects. There's value to the customers, and then there's actually value to industry too, because we're there, and you get that telecom and acquisition expertise, right? And when you're working with 200 plus organizations, right, you do learn a lot, right? I learned so much from customers, whether it's executives or just cores, right, who we engage and they email me something and it's like, okay, well, I would have never known that if you didn't show me that perspective too. So quickly, just want to kind of say who are our customers. It depends on how you count them, right? We have very different ways we enumerate a customer, because sometimes we talk about a department level. Well, let's just say that there's hundreds of large, medium, and small federal government and tribal organizations. Again, like I said earlier, diverse needs, highly urbanized, right? Think Washington, D.C. area, all the way to rural, forest lands, right? Where they need some communications, right? And those are very diverse and have very different needs. Some of the mission spaces: defense, healthcare, agriculture, finance. Key stakeholders, when we talk about working with us, generally from a customer's perspective, contracting officers, I'm going to call them out first, right? They're the ones with the true authority, and they're out there making sure that their organization is getting the services that they need. Key other ones: network management and operations, support staff. And then who I mostly deal with would be like chief information officers, chief information security officers. And again, going back to the value for us, right? We want to work with you to reduce complexity and actually manage those risks every day. So without delay now, I just want to go ahead and introduce the team here. We actually put together a team of diverse stakeholders from ITC, right? They're not all just from the telecom, but we have people here that support us. And I was going to make some introductions. So we have Rosa Underwood. She's a senior IT specialist from our IT security subcategory. And Rosa is one of those professionals, right? A senior member of the team who actually is looking at all of the acquisition products, generally from a cybersecurity, CSCRM, right? Rosa has her own meeting, right, where we generally understand, and when I say that at the highest level, what's coming out, right? Whether it's coming out from industry, whether it's coming out from government, right? New policy, draft policy. We're looking at that so our customers don't have to be the top experts on there. So again, there's lots of value there. Next person I'd like to introduce is Lauren Smith. He's the Director of Solutions Development for the ETS team. Lauren's team, and he has a pretty robust team. They're out there looking at what industry offers, technical solutions, right? It's kind of like, the applied science to where we're able to understand what are new things and how they're going to be applied. So I think Lauren's team is, like, right now, the key one that's on my mind is post-quantum cryptography. And what will that mean for telecom? What would that mean for data in transit, right? That's what I'm very curious on. Hillary LeMay. So Hillary is a program analyst from our vendor relations team. Particularly, you can tell by vendor relations, right? Hillary is a part of an organization that is facing to our vendors. Generally, when I'm talking to our vendors, it's usually, regular executive interactions, but also that's where a lot of the problem solving actually happens. So very interested there. And we have Phil Perspatino. He's a section chief from our operations and systems management division. Phil works for an organization where we actually provide direct services from GSA through GSA contracted services. So this is where we're the direct service provider. Phil and Phil's team and Phil's peers and the people working the full service program are probably the most technically adept when it comes to actually hands-on telecom. I hear about things that just boggle my mind when I hear things that they do, right? Showing up to facilities, assisting the vendor, or assisting with problems, right? Literally, does it work? Incident type break fix events. And then last but not least, definitely not least, I said contracting officer is number one. So Tim Harant is the EIS procuring contracting officer. So at the top level of the IDIQ, Tim is full of wisdom, right? And definitely, when you're having a question about the contract, you're either going to get a quick answer or you're going to get the most informed, researched answer from Tim and his team that are actually leading there. So without further ado, we have some questions. We also want you to put some questions in the chat that you would like us to answer. And please start those now, because throughout the time, I will go ahead and pull some of those questions out. reread them to the team, and then let the appropriate team member actually answer the questions. So the first question, and I'm gonna pose this to both Phil and Lauren. So at the highest level, can you explain what EIS it is and what does it actually offer? And I'll let Lauren go first. Off of mute though, Lauren.
That could help. Thank you, Jake, and thanks everybody. And good afternoon. Thanks for having us and to speak with you today. So EIS, what is EIS? So I'm going to speak in at a very high level. So EIS covers your enterprise infrastructure solutions, and it's regarding all of its needs at a micro level or a macro level. It covers them. So I'm going to go through and give you a brief scenario. I like doing a Lego story because I think a lot of people, or I think when I'm dealing with people or different agencies, we're always in the mindset of the older legacy contracts. And the team, the contracts team like Tim Horan and our EIS PMO office, they had the foresight of thinking we have to be flexible. What happens if things are being added in the future? So the Lego story is, if I go into a Lego store, we have services on our contracts, and I equate those to a box that I can go over and I can pick up a box and I can buy a city, or I can buy a car, I can buy an airplane, and I can go back and assemble that. But we also have the Lego pieces in the back, where you can go and you can build what you need to fit your network solutions. So you can build your universe however you want it, your states however you want it, however you want that to look, you can build that as long as it has to do with your enterprise infrastructure as a whole in telecommunications, right? So so if there's any questions, you could reach out to my team or to me. I'll put a link in the chat for my contact information, sdintake@gsa.gov. But so we can help walk through those type of requirements to make sure that they're allowable under the contract. But the scope is so vast, a lot of things fit under managed services and managed security services. The other thing that EIS has to offer, besides the vast array of different options, is the support we give. Jake already alluded to, and I'm going to repeat it. He didn't allude to it. He spelled it out. I'm going to allude to it again. So I'm going to spell it out again. We have so many support teams that help agencies through this because it is new. It is a different concept than we've ever done before. My engineers on our team, they will actually help agencies find the right solution. If they have opportunities, they need to figure out different avenues or different products or different services or technology. What are their options? We will help them with that. We'll even take it one step further. We will help write a solicitation assist tool. We will help write those agency solicitations based upon their requirements up to like 90%, and then they can go and complete them from that point. We also have tools that agencies can use. For example, the agency pricer. Agencies can go in and look at pricing that was awarded at the base contract or at a task order level. They can go look at services. They can go look at the current contract and the redaction of the contract, or not redactions, I'm sorry, the mods to the contract. And we also have a system called Connexus where they can look at their ordering, their billing, their inventory, et cetera. So it's kind of a network infrastructure contract on steroids that GSA is providing under the EIS contract.
So Phil, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, Jake, thanks for the opportunity. So the one part I will say that looking back, EIS is the successor to over 80 different contracts, right? Many of them are local contracts around the country that many of you folks on this call probably may or may not be familiar with, but this contract pulls together all of those various contracts over the years and puts them into one place that allow our customers to purchase with the easy button, we'd like to say, right? So this is a much different scenario. And I'd like to say that, yes, what we bring together with this contract are folks that just like the folks on this call that are here to support and help our customers and allow them to fully utilize this to provide for their telecommunication services. That's all I can add, Jake. Thank you.
No, thanks, Phil. And that's important. I'm actually going to take, because I think this is kind of key. And Natasha, you're jumping right into it. And Natasha put a question in the chat. What is the plan for agencies who don't want to move off of TDM? So first off, I would say, please put some more questions in this chat if you want us to answer them. We are going to answer your questions, with the time, but just to show our commitment, I want to answer that. And then I want to give Phil a chance to put this on here. So I want to just say that this, for some agencies, moving off the TDM has been a challenge. It is a discussion that at some level we have almost every day in our program. And that's, generally trying to understand awareness of, does the customer, are they aware of what TDM is in their inventory? And, the fact that vendors are not offering this anymore, right? And I looked at all of the news press and even things that Gartner put out. I think I read something last week that said, that talked about telecoms that divested of TDM 10 years ago, right? They don't have it anymore in their inventory. Now on the flip, I just want to say this and I'm going to pass it to Phil. We do hear customers that have these requirements where they have these endpoints that this is all it takes. This is what it works with. It doesn't work with anything else. But when you talk about that, like secure phones and other solutions, you're like, well, the real challenge was you were supposed to modernize those other things too, right? So here, TDM looks to be the problem, but it's something that, the rest of the world is divested of, but we're here for it. So we want to say a couple things I just want to say, and I'll hand it to Phil. We have asked, industry to support the federal government in a finite period, right? A finite period of so that they can transition. And our program, with the most authority that we can and in the most customer service, type fashion we can, we're explaining, I'm talking to those executives, those CIOs, those deputy CIOs saying, you have to get off of these solutions. When we do go out there to negotiate, industry is rightfully negotiating. So some of these things you see in the press, right, about the prices going up, it is true. This is what we're saying. We're saying the same thing. Chemistry from our team, she just passed us a great memo from DoD that they published recently that talked about, hey, the Department of Defense from the CIO's office is saying you must divest of these capabilities because they're not there anymore. And they have supportability issues, right? And they're going to have cyber issues, right? Which means then they have operational risk issues concerned with the continued use of that. So I hope I didn't say enough, because I know Phil and we talk about this all the time. So I hope I left him something for that question.
Well, thank you, Jake. And Natasha, I would just say this. I'm sure I've spoken with agencies that are reluctant to move away from the current technology because A, it works, and B, it's inexpensive. Well, I would just share with you, and please, if you have a specific agency that has questions, I'd love to take them one-on-one with that specific agency and see if I can help them understand the situation. But the price is exponentially increasing as we speak. I can't share with you here, but I can tell you there are negotiations ongoing with every one of the vendors that we had those 80 plus contracts with on how to move forward. and how to price the infrastructure that they're utilizing. But there are options available, right? So there are some devices, POTS in the box, others, Verizon, for an example, doing POTS over fiber. So there are opportunities to continue to utilize the systems that you have, but with newer technology that gets it off of copper. I mean, I think that's, and I'd let some folks here from industry chime in, but I think that's the real challenge that the vendors have, the LECs have, is the copper infrastructure is just no longer supportable. And so, it's a challenge. Upgrade your systems on the back end, alarms. I think, some of the building infrastructure support systems are where the challenge is. So just, have someone reach out to us, to the solutions broker for that agency, and we could set up a conversation and discuss how they can move forward. But sadly, there's no two ways around it. You have to move away from the legacy TDM. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Phil. I'm going to jump into a couple, one of our questions we have, and then I want to come back quickly to these questions that we're getting in here. So I just want to ask Rosa, right? So how does TIC, Trusted Internet Connection 3.0 architecture fit into an agency's zero trust strategy, right? And I'll ask Lauren to follow up with that to say, how does that all work under EIS?
Thanks, Jake. Please excuse me. I have a little bit of congestion going on, so I may sound a little different. Hopefully I'll get through this. But so when looking at TIC, the history of TIC, it's in its third iteration, going back probably about 15 years now, maybe it seems like. Time flies. So, at the first iteration of TIC 1.0, there was discovery of about 4,000 or so external connections that in many cases, CIOs and CISOs within the federal government were not aware of. So the goal of TIC 1.0 was to identify and consolidate, reduce the number of internet connections points. So with 2.0 to 2.2, that was more to standardize the security of the network connections across the federal government. Moving into, moving into TIC 3.0, the goal of that was more to modernize the federal enterprise, looking at advances in technology as agencies move, for example, into the cloud. That also, look more or focus more on cybersecurity strategy, as well as architecture and visibility. So that's where you get into how it correlates to zero trust. The TIC 3.0 supports the creation of trust zones, for example. When you look at what zero trust is a data-centric security model that focuses on the authentication and authorization of preventing those unauthorized access to data. It sees threats. The zero trust security model sees threats, looks at threats both internally as well as externally. So overall, when you look at TIC and how it fits into zero trust, the main goal, I would say, is to improve the security of posture, understanding, that incident response capability, that awareness, making sure that you understand and know who's accessing what and when they're accessing. Thanks. I think Lauren wants to follow up, maybe.
Thank you, Rosa. So so EIS on the onset, we branded the managed trusted internet protocol service, or MTIPS. And at that time, it was based around TIC 2.0. That was what was out at the time. So that's what's in the contract. That's what spells out. However, going back to the Lego story, we didn't prevent agencies from taking advantage of future iterations. So as some agencies were still doing their solicitations, they may have built in requirements supporting a TIC 3.0 type requirements. So how EIS supports it is, yes, that it's branded in the actual EIS contract with MTIPS, but it's not prohibiting agencies from doing a task order scope to support a TIC 3.0 or even some of the future iterations that they come out with and added use cases onto 3.0.
Thanks, Lauren. Thank you. So I want to take a couple of really quickly here. Thomas Payne wrote can GSA provide a forecast of any fair opportunities forthcoming in 2024? So I would start by saying, most of our customers have actually made their transition selections, fair opportunities, but that's not to say that there are not others, because there are others using EIS for other things than transition from the legacy to the modernized contracts. It's not appropriate for us to kind of forecast, because it's the customer's decision. So I would say you really have to look to the customer to get those forecasts. But then there is another forecast. Let's see. I'm gonna hit this next question, and I can answer this one myself. I actually have the answer pulled up here in my inbox. So it says, I would like to know the plan for Connexus. We know the current contract is coming to an end. Is there going forward strategy and innovation changes that you're looking for in the next version of Connexus? So I want to tell you, right, as far as the strategy and innovation and changes, right? So we're still kind of working those requirements and development, but we are working a kind of a acquisition plan and going to leverage some of the services within GSA IT. So if you've ever been to like a Comet industry day, you'll see that they have talked about Connexus in the past. And recently I talked to our fellow GSA leaders over there, Sagar Samant and Matt McGuire. So what we've come up with, we've actually worked with them to make sure that our story was consistent as we had to update things. So I'm just going to read something to you. The earliest Connexus would come as an opportunity for the next generation Comet BPA would be the third quarter FY25, right? So my director, Ray Swinar, and the team under him that's leading systems, they will be working with the team that runs the Comet BPA. Jason, I see your message. Let me check on the distribution of that, right? Or if there's any limitations. So I take that for an actual answer. So I want to go back and I want to really talk about some of the things that we're doing with like vendor relations. So I wanted to, because that's a really important part of the extension of how we explain the value and what we can provide. So just want to shoot a question to Hillary, and like, how is your team planning to educate the agency community on what's available on EIS and our other acquisition products?
We have some very exciting things planned, including the launch of our government-only enterprise education series, and that'll start in the new year. And these events, they will be quarterly, and most importantly, they'll be virtual, so we can really maximize the learning opportunities and support all of our agencies regardless of where they're located. We're working hard behind the scenes to curate some new kinds of engaging content that will help empower our agencies and really just make it easier for them to start implementing these technology solutions that they already have access to under EIS, and they might not even realize it. So Jake, I know that you love the phrase multi-tool, and it's such a nice visual because we really want EIS to be the tool that our customers reach for most when they reach for that toolbox. So we want to make sure that nobody misses any of these future offerings that we're working on. And we want to challenge all of our attendees to subscribe to the EIS Interact community and follow us on the ITC LinkedIn page as well. We're committed to being that trusted advisor for our agencies, and we want our agencies to turn to us for support and education.
Well, thanks, Hillary. And you said something that's key, right? I mean, it's, if you look at it, right, we're taking care of the we're providing services to the entire federal government and tribal organizations. We're also working, in an area where the technology is actually transforming like quickly, right? And I think that's important. You have a 10-year contract. How do you keep actually up? So I want to kind of, ask this to, I'll ask Tim first if he can kind of talk, and then Lauren, because I know his team works on a lot of this technology. So Tim, I'll say, like, how is EIS structured to incorporate emerging technologies and new offerings?
Well, thank you, Jake. The EIS contract has no restrictions or requirements on GSA's ability to add new services to the contract, except those dictated by the scope of the contract, the FAR, or contract law. EIS was created to face these future challenges: SD1, 5G, TIC 3.0, machine learning, AI, the ability to make decisions faster, basically. Our authority to add emerging technologies comes from clause C.1.6, upgrades and enhancements. And that states that the government recognizes that telecommunication technologies and services are rapidly evolving. Accordingly, the government anticipates that services and solutions under this contract will be increased, enhanced, and upgraded as these improvements become available to commercial customers. In terms of actually the process for adding services to the contract, that's very straightforward. The EIS tech team develops the technical requirements and generates Section C modification language. The service requirements, capabilities, SLAs, KPIs, etc., are developed in conjunction with our vendors. Based on the technical requirements, the EIS price team develops new CLINs and generates the associated Section B language. The management and operations team reviews the modifications to Sections B and C and incorporates any necessary operational requirements to Section G, as well as additions to Section J2, i.e. the data dictionary. Other contract sections are modified as necessary. The proposed modification is sent to the vendors for their review and input. If the vendors have any concerns or comments, those are resolved prior to finalization and execution. It should also be noted that in some cases, vendors may add new items to their catalog without a contract modification if the new item falls under one of the existing service categories listed in the contract. For instance, a vendor may add software for quantum cryptography, which falls under managed security services, to their catalog without a modification. Lauren, would you like to add to that?
Sure. Thank you, Tim. That is a lot to take in, right? Because it's really showing how it's robust, right? And and I'm just going to play on to like SD-WAN. When we started EIS, SD-WAN really wasn't a big topic, right? And software-defined wide area networks, it wasn't a big topic back then. So we didn't actually have it spelled out as a specific service in the contract, but it would fall under managed security services or managed network services, sorry. And especially now that our networks are becoming more vast, more Internet of Things, more connections, we're not always sticking with the same vendor. We might pick some services with one vendor, another service with another, with another vendor, et cetera, that it makes even more of SD-WAN a critical element. So we, working with the contract team, wonderful Tim Horan as team, and our architects, et cetera, we decided to put SD-WAN spelled out actually in the contract versus doing a task order unique tuck at that point. So as long as we're following within the guidelines that Tim already outlined, all the laws, the rules, the FARs, et cetera, then we are able to do that. So it's really what it gets down to is, what does the future network look like? We can forecast and we can make logical conclusions But what we're finding is it's not just different technologies, but it's how current technologies may be used, utilized, et cetera, right? So we may need to look at that immediately versus in the future. So we always keep our options open, how it's used, implemented, adopted, et cetera. My team currently are really focused on LEO, 6G, quantum, non-terrestrial network, the metaverse, Web 3.0, you name it, it's AI, et cetera. So our teams are very in depth with trying to keep up with the future technologies, and it changes so quickly that we have to, we're fortunate to have leadership that knows and understands that we have to have that knowledge in order to be able to support our customers and make sure that we have offerings available for the customers as they need it.
So Tim, what about, we talked about technologies. What about vendors as primes, right? Does EIS allow for the expansion of new vendors?
Yes, yes, it does, Jake. We have an on-ramping option on the contract under clause H29. It was included in the contract in case the current pool of awardees drop below an acceptable level for adequate competition on agency RFPs, and that has not yet occurred.
Yeah. What about if a organization wanted to partner with one of the existing 9 primes? What should they do?
I would highly recommend they go to gsa.gov/EIS and look under the industry partners. There are points of contacts for all of our industry partners, and contact them and see if they can arrange for some type of contracting opportunity.
Yeah, and it literally has like the name, telephone number, and email address, and it specifies which prime is there, right? So that's something that you can say if a vendor was interested, they don't have to contact us. They could literally contact one or all 9 of the primes and say that they were interested in it, right? That's how it works.
That is the direction we give to them, Jake. Exactly as you stated it.
Yeah, I get that. When we go places, right, I get that question all the time. And because vendors see so much opportunity on there, so that's why it's there. In fact, I think it's easily Googleable. You said the actual URL, but it's like EIS vendors, and then you'll come up to this page and it has all their contact information. And I can attest that that's good contact information, because that's generally the same information that we use to contact to interact with those team members. So let me see. No new questions from the crowd. So I just want to continue with what we have. So Rosa, there's actually numerous executive orders concerning cybersecurity coming out. It seems like there's like maybe one every couple of weeks.
More like every other day, it seems like.
Yeah. So, and especially with artificial intelligence, and I talked about post-quantum cryptography, and these are the things, right, we need to get in front of and make sure that we have appropriate solutions to protect government and citizen data. So, how do you think that industry can partner with agencies, right, our customers and GSA, to meet modern network security requirements using EIS?
Well, there are so many different ways to do that. The industry, they have to adapt. The landscape continuously is changing, whether it's within the threat environment or policy, to get an understanding and to ensure that solutions that they're building or offering operates not just securely, but functional wise. They can partner with federal government. There are across the government, there are various, like this particular forum, there's IAC, there are other public-private partnership organizations, say that fast 5 times, where they can participate and provide their feedback or input into things, for example, with best practices. When you look at things that are coming out of the White House, currently there are at least 2 draft memos that are out for public comment, make sure that you access that information, provide your feedback to potential proposed policy. Look at, for example, regulations.gov. Currently, there are 2 FAR cases that are out for public comment. These are type of policies that impact how potentially impact how businesses operate. When you look at your business model, what are you doing now that potentially could change based on new policies? So, comment on those proposed language and regulations. Continue to engage with organizations like IAC. Make sure you understand the threats to, for example, critical infrastructure and overall the national security, how threat actors operate. Understanding adversary behavior is often the first step in protecting networks and data. I would also encourage industry and others to leverage the resources provided by GSA. We have lots of resources available on the various pages. Also look at what NIST offers, CISA, NSA, and DoD. There are lots of ways to keep up with what's happening, whether it's policy, requirements. So just stay engaged, subscribe to some of these websites, and you will receive these notifications for things such as executive orders within the Federal Register.
Yes, I want to ask a question because you made me think about like other things that go on beyond this, beyond telecom, right? That we are here. So, Terrence, he leads the subcategory that is for cybersecurity, and he has their hacks solution. So, is there any way to best engage with that team, from a vendor perspective and from a customer perspective on the solutions that are on those contracts?
Yeah, so the highly adaptive cybersecurity services, SIN, special organization item number, offers services, more so services than products. Not saying that those particular offers that are available through the hack SIN don't use products. For example, when you look at the memo 2209 that was issued last year by OMB, centered around zero trust, one of the things that we were responsible for was within the applications and workload section. And that was more of the establishing a more robust application security testing program for agencies. So what we did, working through hacks, we made available several resources for agencies to look at, for example, red teaming. Sometimes we, as an agency or as an organization, whether it's government or non-government, we tend to think that our networks are robust, they're very secure. With hacks, you can actually procure services, red teaming, for example, to come out and test to make sure that indeed you have the controls in place to mitigate some of the risks associated with network intrusion.
So I want to stay that same theme at least, right? So, how do you feel the need to move to quantum resistant encryption? Will need to fit, right? Once those I don't know if you want to call them solutions or risk, right? Once they're available, like how does that fit into a larger zero trust architecture?
So the prediction is that those computers that can break the current public key methods of encryption now are not going to be necessarily available until already or up and running until around 2035. That's the prediction. You look at a couple of sources. I believe GAO, they did release a report earlier this year, if not late last year, maybe earlier this year, around some of the expectations when it comes to that crypto-analytically relevant quantum computer or CRQC. the methods of the encryption methods now of storing data, once that computer is up and running, those current methods may not work. So there could be a potential break in some of the information, and that information then becomes available, say, for example, across the dark web. With zero trust, as I mentioned earlier, is a data-centric security model. And the goal is to prevent unauthorized access to data and resources. So that's that key right there. That's how you tie into making sure that, one, you're following what NIST is doing. NIST is currently undergoing their, right now there's draft algorithms out. The plan is to finalize those quantum algorithms sometimes next year. Keep up with that. Look at your systems. Going back last fall, OMB did issue memo 2302, and that was, the migration or preparing to migrate to that post-quantum era. The goal of that was to have agencies to start looking at their systems, see what potentially could be or what is vulnerable, and start inventorying those systems. Industry can do that as well. When you start looking at what your systems are capable of doing, are they vulnerable, start inventorying as well. And then also looking at your supply chain. There was a guidance recently issued jointly by NSA, CISA, and NIST, that quantum supply chain readiness. We're looking at that from a supply chain perspective. Our industry partners should be doing it as well, because industry partners also have a supply chain.
All right. Thanks, Rose. So, I'm going to talk about another cybersecurity related or could be, right? Let's just say this, but I'm going to ask Lauren to jump in, and then I'll ask you to pick up. So, now that the Executive Order 14.110 is out, and agencies are actually bringing on their chief artificial intelligence officers, what influence do you think AI will bring to like network transport, network security, telecom products and services, maybe not even just in the context of security, Lauren, I'm going to ask you first, but maybe in the sense of making like enterprise routing decisions and things of that nature. So would love to get your thoughts on that, Lauren.
Thank you, Jake. As we've been talking about AI machine learning for many, many, many years, and because we knew this was going to be a futuristic opportunity for government agencies. What we do see is, like exactly what you're saying, Jake, is AI can make decisions faster than any individual. So we spend a vast amount of time analyzing agencies' inventory, for one, right? Just looking at how can we help agencies optimize to save money. And Jake also keyed onto it. How does network switching work, right? How can they optimize and keep the best performance of a network happening? So you have this whole load balancing act that's operating 24/7. And today, you have people doing it, but it's more of a manual effort, right? So if you want to make a change, somebody has to go in and make a change. You have to put in a request and make a change. What I see in the future is machine learning kind of looking out there and seeing what's critical, what's not, and people have to build the rules, right? Because they might have something critical that needs a higher priority, right? So you got to make sure that you're still taking that into consideration. You don't want AI just doing whatever it wants to do, but you have to let AI know that this is more critical than X, and let it allow to help optimize a network and the usage of that network and keep those costs down. The other thing too, especially when we get into cloud, there are certain cloud services you can save money on if it's not operating 24/7. So what happens if it could be spun down or spun up instantaneously? So AI can help make those decisions, and probably in the future even act and do some of those decisions. And when we're getting into, and Jake, you kind of said other than security, but I think the biggest advocate is security. The attacks coming to us in the future will not be human attacks. They're going to be AI attacks. And no human is going to be able to sit there and prevent all of the AI attacks. So that machine needs to watch people. We're talking about zero trust, how we don't trust anybody and re-authenticate people. But just because an account is authenticated doesn't mean they're real, right? Somebody could have used somebody else's password and logged in, right? Or something, right? There is a possibility that somebody could be faking somebody else's account and logged in. So machine learning learns that, oh, this type of individual does this on a daily basis. Now, all of a sudden, somebody comes in and now they went to 3 different systems that said you're prohibited from looking at that. Something should throw up a red flag and say, wait a minute, why is this individual now trying to access stuff that they've never tried before, and they've done 3 attempts, 4 attempts, 5 attempts, whatever that policy is. And then somebody that needs to throw up a red flag immediately, and something needs to take action, because most likely it's not a user, right? Or a trusted user, I should say. There's probably a threat, because people don't just all of a sudden change the way they do work.
No, hey, no, thanks, Lauren. I mean, a lot, I think you said it. This is one of those times where, for both good and bad reasons, right? The efficacy of computer versus a human, in some cases, may mean we need to, fight fire with fire, right? And understand those things. So we're coming up on our time. I want to end with one question here. I want to throw it to Phil. This is something we talk a lot about, the full service program. Lots of legacy technologies in there that are still providing mission use and very, yeah, I think I'll just end it there, right? They're providing necessary services. So, with GSA going towards the divesting of the full service program, Phil, is there an opportunity for industry to help fill those gaps?
Well, yes, thank you, Jake. I think what I would say is, for many years, GSA area telecom managers, such as myself and my team, we've acted as consultants, project managers, soup to nuts to provide services to our customers as the customer record. And so I really think, including a help desk, right? So yes, I think the need for these services for our federal partners is still out there. And I think it does offer an opportunity for industry to take these roles on and work with these federal agencies to provide these services. Yes, sir. Couldn't agree more.
If I may, Phil, to add on to that, I don't think a lot of people really know what GSA really does for full service, because we literally rebill to all these independent components within the agency. And that task alone is unbelievable. So that is a big opportunity for other companies to come in and provide that service.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you.
No, thanks. Hey, we're coming at the end of our time. I just want to say some things thanks to IAC for the opportunity. These are a big deal for us, because I would say, I think the number one challenge we have in a lot of cases is having people understand what our products are and what our services are, and what we as a team, right, can offer, to our customers, our federal and tribal customers, and to industry, right? That's that whole communications, right? We do well in what we do actually offer, but if you don't have that outlet, and there are things that Hillary are working on to get our name out there and really show the prowess, right, and quantitative and qualitative measures. So I just want to go around. I'll start with Hillary. Any parting thoughts here?
No, just all of the topics that we covered are things that we look forward to really peeling back the layers on and providing that deeper level of education in a way that is usable and understandable in a more conversational way. So we look forward to that opportunity.
All right, thank you. Rosa.
I'm just going to reiterate what I said earlier. Just make sure that you keep up with what's happening across not just the threat landscape, but also the compliance and best practices landscape. There's a lot of stuff out there. Lots of resources available for not just federal agencies, but also state and local governments, as well as tribal, tribunal, and industry. So make use of those resources.
Tim, what about some contracting wisdom?
I will just reiterate, any of the EIS vendors, and I believe they're all on the call today. If you want to add emerging technologies or enhancements to the contract, please contact your CO or me, and we will make that happen.
All right. I'll go to Lauren, and then Phil will round us out.
Thank you. I have nothing more to add. It's just echoing the emerging technologies where we have to watch what the future is going to bring.
Yeah, and I think you wanted, I have here in my notes, we talked about how we will be working with industry as we look at our next generation solutions, right? That's what I'll just call them. And we're going to be working with the NNT team here as well, so that, because we want to do something that's actually fit for purpose. So thank you. And go ahead, Phil.
Thank you, sir. So I would just close with, if any of the folks on this call have any questions, specifically about agencies transitioning away from their TDM services to newer technology, please have the customer reach out to their solutions broker again, and then set up a call, and we would love to help them come up with new solutions to their problems that they have with this the legacy technology. So thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Phil. I'll turn it back to Robert.
Well, great. Well, Jake, thank you so much for leading this group, and Rosa, Lauren, Hillary, Phil, Tim. It was really great to hear from you. I learned a lot. The scope and breadth of what you do in your program and what you're doing for the federal agencies is amazing, and it's a lot of work. Quantum and all these things that are coming up. I mean, it's just hard to stay ahead, right? So you guys are doing outstanding. For those government folks that are on the call, please join our NNT, the Networking Telecommunication Community of Interest. We look forward to getting more folks within our group and interest in getting projects going and doing things like this, where we're really targeting those topics that we know that are challenging to the government. So again, thank you. GSA team, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you, and I will reach out to you, Jake. I'll be in DC in a couple weeks.
All right, thank you.
Awesome, man.
Thanks,
Thanks, folks. Thank you to everyone. Have a great week.